In terms of planning and development, I mean, we are open for business. I'm known for saying that tagline wherever I go, and I think that's really important that I can engage with developers because I think we know what we want, and unless we engage with you guys and speak to you and tell you exactly what we want, we're not necessarily going to be able to join that piece up and deliver. I mean, in terms of our wish list, we're always more money from government in terms of the new towns fund, the levelling up money, and all of the rest of it. Absolutely, we will put in for everything that we can get in terms of we've got some high levels of deprivation, particularly towards the south of the borough in Wharf and Cross, some of the worst places for deprivation in the eastern region. And it'll be really good to try and level up our borough in terms of we've got some really affluent areas, but once I go as leader, and if I've done a good job and I've managed to level up that's a fantastic achievement to be able to kind of do that. But I suppose particularly turning to planning, I mean, I want more planners for a start. I think there's a real issue around trying to get planners because, particularly in where we're issuing notices where development hasn't gone quite so well, or you're doing things you shouldn't be doing. One, because that helps the good developers in terms of us taking action against bad developers, so everyone doesn't get that bad name. In terms of my ask again for planning viability, there's got to be a change to this viability because I'm a great believer in you can pay anyone to say anything. And I think if you turn up at a council and say we can't afford to give you anything, well, it's already challenging for me to sell housing. So if I've got no goodies to go with that, it's even more challenging. And I suppose what I'd say to that is every politician has a pot of political capital, and do they want to spend any trying to get or trying to help or spend time investing in this development that brings no goodies around that? And I suppose my other on my wish list ask from government is give me powers to stop land banking. I go everywhere and people say, no, 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 we don't land bank, we don't do this. But I've sat on the planning committee now and we must have approved thousands of houses. Very few have been built. They are starting to come through the chain now. But that doesn't help us as politicians because we get lots of aggravation in terms of when we say new settlements and this is where development's going to go. We give planning permission. People then forget that there's planning permission because it might be 5 years later that it starts to build, and we go through all of that public outcry again. So we get a double hit, and that doesn't necessarily help us in terms of what we're trying to do. Once we've granted something, I wanted it built yesterday. Let's crack on and do it.
Great stuff. Well, that's a considerable wish list, Lewis. Let's unpack it slightly. So, when you're talking about government funding and levelling up,
Yeah.
what realistic expectations have you got for intervention from government, for funding from government, given that levelling up is really focused on those sort of red wall seats?
I mean, I think there is what government I think are beginning to realise, and what we've made the case for in Hertfordshire. And don't get me wrong, levelling up needs to happen. There are places in the north of England, particularly in those red wall seats, that have been left behind and that do need significant investment. I understand all of that, and for me, how we square that circle is not forgetting there are pockets of deprivation in the southeast of England, and for your bang for your buck, you actually get more money spending a bit of investment in the southeast to then spend in these red wall areas that desperately need it as well. And I suppose the phrase I like to use is we've got to keep the engine room going of the economy to generate this wealth that you then want to spread around the country. So it's not about one without the other. You've got to do both consecutively, otherwise it's not gonna work.
Have you got any evidence that message is getting through?
We're seeing some when the government's looking at new deals in terms of local government reorganisation. We've seen some places in the eastern region get through to the final stages of those discussions with government. So I think they are beginning to listen around all of that. And I think the economic argument, the economy is doing incredibly well at the moment, and it'd be a shame to miss out on this opportunity in terms of stopping all of the investment in the southeast, to then spend it up north, which, as I said, desperately needs it. But once that money's gone, unless that engine room's still going, there won't be more to follow it. So I think they are listening to us. It's been a long, hard slog to get them to listen to us. I've met Michael on a few occasions now. He seems to be taking that argument on board in terms of where are we going to put those extra investments forward. So we can only be hopeful in terms of that.
And in terms of planning resource, how
Yeah.
active or passive are you as an actor in that field? Are you able to in some way encourage the education, the training of more planners? Are you able to access some resources there?
We
What can
are,
you do?
and I suppose I'm at the stage now where I think we need to attract the brightest and the best in the business. I think districts or counties or whoever's got the planning London boroughs, unitaries need to join together, because I think it's more exciting to work over a larger geographical area, and everyone needs that resource. There's more chance for resilience, because if somebody leaves and you can't replace them, that affects that whole system. It doesn't just affect us, it affects you guys as well as developers. And I think there are more opportunities for promotion, more exciting projects, different issues. So I think we're at that stage now where we've got to do something around that, because that's what's holding us all up. I mean, we've got loads of vacancies in terms of planning in Broxbourne, and I know my colleagues have across Hertfordshire. And the only trouble with that, if we start the training now, that doesn't help me tomorrow. That helps me in 3, 4, 5 years time. So we've got to start investing in that. And one way we're going to look into doing that is whether we can train our own in terms of internally. Let's get someone locally that lives in the borough that wants to be a planner, doesn't necessarily want to go to university. Let's give them other options. They can do that. They can do that locally to help get. We've got to do something to get the system working, because it's not working as it currently stands.
That's really interesting. And is there a role for the Hertfordshire Growth Board in that, in terms of that sort of sharing of planning resource?
Absolutely. I think they can be more strategic across that, and I've often banged the drum in terms of what resources can we do across Hertfordshire that, as long as someone that submits a planning application, or somebody that wants to find out about something about planning, can ring a number and get an answer. It doesn't matter whether that person's sitting in my HQ in Broxbourne, the county's HQ in Hertford, Watford's HQ in Watford. So we can definitely do that across that. And as I said, it builds resilience, and you can learn from each other, because I suppose the most important resource for me when I'm talking about planning is other council leaders, to see what they've been through, who they've worked with that's been good, and who they haven't worked with that who they have worked with, sorry, that's been bad.
Yeah, interesting stuff. And then finally, you mentioned changing sort of viability rules, and
Yeah.
also powers to stop land banking. Are these conversations you've had with Michael Gove as well? What levers have you got to pull on those issues?
I mean, we have had, I haven't had discussions around those with Michael Gove as per se, who's only new in post. We have had with other Secretary of States, and I think lots of my colleagues are in the same kind of boat in terms of all of that. It's not us. That's the government's got targets in terms of, we want to build X amount of homes a year. I'm a firm believer in, it's not the planning system that's holding that up. We grant the planning permissions, because when you look at what gets granted and what doesn't get granted, the large majority does get granted, because our hands are tied on some of those. But we're not actually seeing those houses come to fruition and get built, which exacerbates that problem. And I suppose in terms of viability, there's got to be. My view is, you wouldn't be building there if you couldn't make any money out of it at all. Period. It wouldn't get touched. So the fact that you want to build on there tells me that there is money in it, and there will be money for community uses and all of the rest of it. And I suppose it's just about being sensible with that. I think we're getting a lot more cleverer in terms of saying, "Oh, well, hang on a minute, that doesn't sound quite right, and we're not going to support that because of these issues." And I suppose when you've got lots of building work going on, to take people with you, which is a crucial part of all development, we need goodies that go alongside that. Because the questions I get on the doorstep is, where's the doctor's surgery, where's the new road, where's the new community centre? And if that viability tells me I can't have any, as I said, I haven't got an unlimited pot of political capital. Am I going to then spend time on this development that's not going to help me deliver what I also want to deliver in the borough?